Good evening from world-famous Brooks Falls. This is Ranger Mike Fitz at Katmai National Park and Preserve, and I'm standing on an elevated wildlife viewing platform about 10 feet off the ground, right next to the falls here. And for the next hour, I will be your webcam. I will be giving you a play-by-play of what I see here at the falls, talking about the different bears, talking about how they interact with one another, talking about the salmon that are here that attract the animals, and maybe anything else that catches my attention. Over the next hour, I won't necessarily be checking the comments on explore.org or on Facebook if you're watching there, but I'll do my best to answer a lot of the basic questions that people might have about these bears and the salmon that they're after. There will also be moments where I will be quiet as I'm trying to gather my thoughts. I'm looking around. There's a lot of different things that happen here throughout the evening. I can see bears upstream of me. I can see bears downstream of me. So I'll do my best to give everybody some insight into the wildlife spectacle that we have here in front of me. And before she walks out of view, maybe I should mention just who we're looking at over here. So this is an adult female with 2 yearling cubs that's walking into the trees. This is number 402. And she's one of the older females that we have here. She's kind of in her late teens. She's had several litters. She's one of those few bears actually that will fish the lip of the waterfall. So if you've ever seen a picture of a bear about to catch a fish in its mouth, it probably was taken right here at Brooks Falls. And she's one of those few bears that has learned to catch fish on the lip. Not many salmon are jumping tonight, so there's probably not too many fish in the water. But what that means is that the bears will be sticking around a lot longer. You know, anecdotally, from what I've seen here, it seems almost counterintuitive, but when we have more salmon in the water, when we have a lot of salmon in the water, the bears get full very easily, they get sated, and well, they just have to go into the forest and sleep it off. I know for most Americans today, this is a holiday. This is a celebration for Independence Day. So many of you may have had some big meals, some barbecues today. The bears today are gorging on salmon, and they're looking not only, they're not celebrating, of course. What they're doing is they're trying to survive the next famine in the winter. So if they have to sit and wait and be patient for these fish, they're certainly going to do that. And number 402, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see her. Not quite yet. She hasn't moved quite far enough down into our line of sight, but she's almost right in front of us. So here she comes. So she walked a little bit around the falls, and now here she comes into view. Again, an adult female here, experienced mother. Couple of cubs in their second summer. Bears in Katmai typically keep their cubs for 1 to 2 summers, or 2 to 3 summers before they kick them out and they're on their own. And based on past history, this is probably this pair of cubs. This is probably their last year with mom. So watching cubs is a lot of fun. I mean, the cubs they're very cute. They're very playful. It's really interesting to watch them explore their world. But they, of course, their cuteness, their playfulness, their inquisitiveness does mask a lot of the risks that they face. And number 402, she is teaching them a lot of lessons about where to fish, how to catch fish. They learn from watching other bears as well. So she's moving out of our line of sight. I can't see her anymore. If you have the opportunity to watch, the webcams in the future, and you see moms with cubs, you can watch them very carefully, and you can see that the cubs, in many cases, mimic the behavior of mom. Especially, her mood. If she's acting nervous and defensive, the cubs are going to act that way. If she seems relaxed and playful, then the cubs are going to act that way. So we do often see the cubs mimic the mood or behavior of mom. So they're quick learners, very fast learners, just like human children are. And that's one of those really neat things that you can watch here. We can see these animals grow from year to year, from small cubs all the way up into these big guys and gals that we have in the water here. All the bears that we see fishing at the waterfall right now are adult bears. If you want to know more about our individual bears, and you're just tuning into the webcams, you're maybe not too familiar with these animals, you can go to Katmai's website, or just type in Katmai ebooks into a search engine and go to the ebooks page on Katmai's website. There's also a link to it on explore.org, right above the comments section at the bottom of the page. And you can download the guidebook that we have here of our bears, because I'll be talking a lot about different individuals that we see. And if you don't recognize them, that's okay. I'll do my best to try to discuss their life history and some of their behaviors. So even if you don't really know them, you're seeing them from the first time, they certainly have a lot of stories that they can tell us about the bear world. And one bear just caught a fish, so let's take a look at him. He's fairly conspicuous, fairly easy to recognize because he has a big wound on his rump. And that wound actually, believe it or not, looks better than it did just a week and a half ago when it was freshly opened. And he got that wound from another bear that's here at the waterfall. Bears do occasionally get in fights. Most of the time they avoid any of those physical altercations because they're equipped with, as you know, big teeth, big claws. They're extremely strong and powerful animals. So they can inflict severe punishment on each other. Even if you're a big bear and you attack a smaller bear, you still risk being injured in those fights. So most of the time they're posturing with one another, looking to avoid those physical confrontations if they can, but sometimes they don't avoid it. And that's, this one bear here, that's what happened to him. So this is number 83. He's an adult male. We think that he was raised as a cub here, in the area. Definitely, we think he visited the river as a cub. So just like 402's cubs that we were looking at earlier, he learned a lot of lessons about how to survive, how to live here from his mother. Now he's putting those lessons to use as an adult bear. A few days ago we had salmon just ripping out of the water. Maybe, I think I was counting more than 150 salmon jumping a minute. Just 2 or 3 nights ago. So bears were getting very full. They were catching their fill very easily. Tonight we're not seeing that, of course. You don't see many salmon jumping in the water. You don't see them pooling below me. That's what's keeping the bears around. In fact, last night, I was standing here, and I was up here for about 4 hours just watching bears, like I usually do. And during the entire time, I counted maybe 15 fish caught in that whole entire time period. If you want to contrast that with a couple of nights ago when we had a lot of salmon here at Brooks Falls, I saw one bear catch and kill 18 fish. And he wasn't consuming the whole thing. He was so full that he was just eating the select parts of the fish, the fattier parts of the fish, the skin and the brain and the eggs. But those, those 2 time periods really contrast with one another, and that's a great way to sort of explain the behavioral differences that we're maybe seeing tonight with the bears sitting and waiting, compared to just a few nights ago. If you were tuning in and you saw a lot of salmon in the water, the bears coming down, catching them very easily, and then leaving fairly quickly because their stomachs were full. So again, one of the hallmarks of bears is their patience. They know that if that the salmon are coming, if they're patient enough, they can wait, take their time, and they'll be rewarded for that. And while we're waiting for, maybe a bit of change here at the falls, maybe see if another bear wants to catch a fish or interact with another bear, I'm going to pan downriver. We'll take a look. I think you'll be able to see this. There's an area downriver here that we call the cut bank because the river is cutting into the hillside there. And there's a family of bears that's sitting down there, another mother with 2 yearling cubs. And it's kind of hard for me to tell, if that's a known bear or not. It probably is, but it's just hard to see. And I think it's hard for you to see too. It's not quite in focus. But they're just like at the bottom center of your screen right now. The cut bank is an area where a lot of bears that aren't particularly tolerant to the presence of people will use to fish. It's not as successful as fishing at Brooks Falls because there's no barrier that impedes salmon migration down there. And in the fall, when bears are fishing for dead and dying salmon, a lot of the salmon that spawn in that area get swept downstream. So it's also not that great in the fall compared to the mouth of the river. But not all bears, of course, are tolerant to the presence of people, so they use that area more often than maybe Brooks Falls, where we have large groups of people standing throughout the day. Here at Katmai, we're not only trying to protect the bears that are fairly tolerant to the presence of people, but we're trying to protect the bears in the population that maybe need a little bit of extra space. So again, anytime that you're visiting a wildlife viewing area, do consider how your mere presence in the area may impact the animals. That's why these webcams are so great, because they allow everybody who wants to visit Brooks River the opportunity to watch the bears really without impacting in their lives at all. And I'm really glad that I can share that with everybody. So as you can see, our bears are still in their same positions. A lot of these bears specialize in one or more places. We have very few bears that can actually fish in virtually anywhere at the waterfall. Most of the time they seem to like or prefer one place or another. The bear that just caught a fish in the far wall here, one of our older adult males, maybe the oldest adult male that we know of on the river, number 480 Otis. He's a specialist in that far pool and also in the plunge pool that's closest to me, the place that we nicknamed the jacuzzi. So we call this area that he's in right now the far pool. He sits there and he can sit there for hours on end, waiting for a salmon to swim right under his face and he can pounce on it. One of the things that older bears have to deal with that can make survival difficult for them is damage to their teeth and dental wear. And if this bear is closer to us, we might be able to get a better look inside of his mouth. He's actually missing a couple of canines. He's missing, I think, one on his upper left and one on his lower right. That makes it very difficult for him to actually bite into the fish. When fishing is really good here and the bears are eating the fattier parts of the fish, they're eating the skin, they're eating the brains, they're eating the eggs. Number 480 Otis, he can't quite high grade the fish for those fattier parts like some of the younger bears with more teeth can. Bears also suffer from cavities in their teeth, abscessed teeth. Their molars wear down over time. So it's not necessarily, his overall size that can put him at a disadvantage. He's still a fairly big bear, but, if he doesn't have the teeth to chew food, process food, if he doesn't feel like he can defend himself as well because of the dental wear and the damage to his teeth that he has, that may, negatively impact his survival. So older bears face challenges as well. It's not only those young bears that are learning their way in the world, but it's definitely these older bears, because the bears here at Katmai National Park receive no veterinary care. Injuries that happen naturally are allowed to run their course. National parks not only preserve sort of the grand spectacles of nature that we love to see, but they also, preserve the ecological processes, and many of those contain the harsh realities. Bears do live in a very difficult world. That bear we were just looking at, Otis, he was first identified here, I think, as an older subadult bear or a younger adult bear around 2001. So he's definitely a very experienced animal, and that's one of the big advantages that he has going for him. He's no longer dominant enough, really, to maybe occupy his preferred fishing spot in the jacuzzi. There's other more dominant bears that'll push him out of the way. But with age comes experience. Not sure if you can really consider a bear wise in the same sense as humans, but certainly experience and intelligence factor into their ability to survive and make a living when they can't access the same places that they used to. And over here, another bear just caught a fish. This is probably the oldest bear that we know of on the river, number 410. She's an adult female, thought to be born in 1988. Again, another very experienced bear here on the river. She likes to fish that area near the rocks where she's standing. She'll fish a little bit closer to us, but it seems like most often she'll fish in that spot. And you can see that, animals recognize situations where they can have an easier time doing something, like eating salmon in rushing water. So number 410 moved over just a little bit from where she was standing, just in the lee of that rock, so she has a little bit of an easier time eating that fish in the rushing water. This is a bear that also is very tolerant of the presence of other bears. Other bears seem to be very tolerant of her. Bears are incredibly intelligent animals. They remember each other from year to year. So once they kind of figure out who's who, if you don't pose a threat to me, then maybe I won't challenge you in the future. They don't need to waste energy on those interactions anymore. And 410 wastes very little energy in those interactions because she's very tolerant of other bears. And that's not necessarily an advantage that other bears have or can learn. Of course, if you're an adult male, for instance, maybe it's in your best benefit, especially for the sake of your genes, that you're not tolerant of other bears, because you want to grow as big as you can, to get as strong as you can, by accessing the best fishing spots here at Brooks Fall in order to reproduce in the future, because males have to fight often for access to females. That's one reason why they get scars and wounds, especially in the springtime during the peak of the bear's mating season. So if you're a big bear, you have to dominate your home range. They don't defend territories like a pack of wolves do, but they do let other bears know who's in the area, maybe how big and bad you're feeling that day. They will mark trees, they'll urinate on the ground. A lot of those things inform other bears just who's in the area, what's going on. The bear down closest to us here, one of the more dominant bears on the river, this is number 747. He's a huge bear. He might be the heaviest bear that we have on the river, at least maybe the heaviest bear that I've seen this year. Quite a large animal. He may be pushing, the 800-pound mark or more, maybe even close to 900 pounds at this time of the year. The average midsummer weight of an adult male here at at Katmai is 700 to 900 pounds, and I really have no doubt that 747 is pushing that upper limit. And he got to be that big by being very skilled at fishing, but also by being a very dominant bear and being able to occupy the best fishing spots on a regular basis. And that plunge pool that he's sitting in right now, not too many salmon jumping at the moment, but there's a lot of fish that are swirling in that whirlpool down below. And again, he's fishing just through, he just missed one there. He's fishing just through feel. He can't see into the water there. So he's waiting for a salmon to bump into him. But if you're big enough to occupy the best fishing spots, then often you're big enough to have access to females and have the greatest likelihood of siring offspring and spreading your genes throughout the population. And we do see 747 courting a lot of females during June and also in July too. The mating season's tapering off right now, but we can sometimes see courting behavior throughout the month of July here at Brooks River. There's one other bear here at the falls right now that's fishing, and I haven't really introduced him yet. This is also a mature adult male in his teens. This is the bear that we call 755. His nickname's Scare D Bear, and he got that nickname when he was a young bear because he ran from virtually everything. He ran from people, he ran from other bears. He's not quite, tolerant of other of people like some of these other bears. We rarely see him approach the side of the river that I'm standing on the wildlife viewing platform. And again, that behavior might be kind of programmed into some bears' genes. They just see people as a competitor. As far as other bears go, these days since he's a medium-large male, or medium-sized male at least, he's much more willing to stand his ground when other bears approach him. So bears, as they mature and they gain size, they can gain confidence in their ability to hold their positions in an area where bears concentrate for rich food resources. Maybe he can put those that same skill to the test defending an animal carcass in the forest, if there's a winter-killed moose or of course here at the waterfall for a fishing spot, or of course defending access to a female. If she's showing signs of estrus and he's interested in that, then big male bears will be able to defend access to females easier than a smaller bear. In the evening after the wildlife viewing platform here at Brooks Falls closes, from June 15th to August 15th, it closes at 10 p.m. and opens at 7 a.m. After that happens and the crowd departs from the river, this bear may come over to the lip of the waterfall and try fishing there. I've only seen it really a couple of times, and it's when virtually nobody's been standing on the wildlife viewing platform and it's been fairly quiet. Maybe myself and just one other person. He might come over and test his skills on the lip of the waterfall, but most often when there's people standing here, he's on the far side of the river. And there's a lot of adult males that exclusively use that far side of the river, and it seems like the common denominator when they do that is the presence of people. And that's the main reason why the falls platform here is closed from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. to allow those, what we call the non-human habituated bears, the opportunity to feed without our disturbance. Moving into our view downstream here on the other side of this island is an adult female. You may be wondering, Mike, just how in the world do you know that's a girl and not a boy? Well, I'm recognizing her based on her coat color and the features of her face. I can't see, any genitalia, anything that would determine a male from a female. So many of these bears I recognize just because they've been here for several years, so I can see them, on a yearly basis. And once you start looking at all these animals, they all have unique physical characteristics that separate them from one another. Just like staring at a group of people. At first it may be hard to tell people apart, but then you can easily see that everyone has some unique traits. And this adult female here, again, I'm just recognizing her from her face and her coat. This is number 505. She was first identified as an adult female just a couple of years ago. She is also a bear that will fish the lip of the falls, and we saw that a lot last year from her. She'll sometimes steal fish, too. So maybe if more salmon start jumping tonight, we may see her visit the lip of the falls. But right now she's patrolling the area downstream. This area that we're looking at right down here is called the Riffles. And this is an area where a lot of bears that maybe can't occupy fishing spots at Brooks Falls will go to fish. And there's a couple of other bears that are down there right now. Meanwhile, back at the falls, the most dominant bear here right now, number 747, has just caught a fish in that jacuzzi. And again, he wasn't really expending any energy in the jacuzzi, hardly any at all. Just waiting for the fish to bump into him. Based on the rate that he's eating this fish, the amount of fish that he's eating, doesn't look like he'll leave much, if any, leftovers. And that indicates to me that he hasn't caught too many fish today, especially compared to late last week, when he was really sometimes just stripping the part of the skin off of the salmon and leaving the rest behind because he was just so full. I often wonder whether or not bears are just genetically programmed to consume themselves almost to the point of sickness when food is abundant, because they live in a feast or famine world. Hunger is very much a part of their world. Of course, they're hibernating for 6 months, maybe more sometimes, surviving without access to food and water. They don't eat, they don't drink, they don't urinate, and they don't defecate when they're in their dens. So they're surviving solely on their stored body fat. And this is the first chance that these bears really have to regain that lost body fat that they lost during hibernation. So he left a little bit behind. He left some, maybe some gill plates, some entrails. And the reason why the gulls are all going nuts, because there was a bald eagle that you just caught a glimpse of that came in and picked up that scrap. And that eagle, I actually didn't realize it was down there. It was probably sitting in a tree watching that bear eat, waiting for any leftovers. Quite often those leftovers are quickly consumed by the gulls that we have here. A couple different species, glaucous-wing and mew gull. But the bald eagles are very conspicuous too. The numbers of eagles increase quite substantially when bears are fishing for salmon. Salmon are a pretty big catch for a bald eagle. Again, the average salmon here weighs about 4 to 7 pounds. And if you're a bald eagle that weighs less than that, then it's going to be hard to catch a live salmon and bring that struggling fish back to a spot where you can consume it. So the bald eagles often look for bears to leave parts of salmon in the river where they can pick it up. There's probably a half dozen to 10 nests within a 5-mile radius of Brooks River. So we see a lot of adult eagles here. We see a lot of immature eagles. And then in September and October, we see eagles that have just fledged out of the nest. And the thing that brings all of these animals here to Brooks River is the fish. Without the fish, and I've said this many times in many other bear cam broadcasts, without the fish, this phenomenon, this spectacle that we're watching right here, just wouldn't happen. Bears would not fish at this waterfall. There would not be enough fish in the stream to grab their attention. So this whole scene that we have right now, the gulls, the eagle, the bears that we have, is all dependent on the salmon that are coming here to spawn. Maybe some more salmon are moving into the falls area right now because there's a couple of bears that are eating salmon. Again, the one closest to us in the frame, number 83. The one on the far side, number 755. Some bears are big enough to sort of stand their ground and eat the fish right where they caught it. Of course, those fish are very slippery. They're struggling to survive. They want to escape. They don't want to get eaten alive. So the bears will often move into a position where they can eat that fish just a little bit easier. Sometimes they'll move into a place where they feel more secure. Fish stealing is something that you'll see a lot of bears do. In fact, the one, number 83, the one closest to us eating the fish, is a known fish stealer. We've seen him do that many times over the past week. And number 747 just caught another fish too. So during the broadcast here, if you're keeping track at home, that's number 2 for him. Let's take a moment to watch him use those dexterous teeth and lips to strip the skin off of that fish. Looks like 747 may, he was kind of in the body cavity of that fish. A lot of bears prefer to eat salmon eggs. Salmon eggs are almost nothing but fish oil. They're incredibly rich in calories, incredibly high in fat. Given, a comparison with salmon flesh, an equal weight of salmon eggs are 6 to 7 times richer in calories than salmon flesh. The bears know that. Fat really tastes good to them. Sugar really tastes good to them. They're preconditioned. They've evolved to want those foods, just in a lot of ways, just like people. So you'll really see them very rarely ignore salmon eggs. That's one of the parts of the fish that is almost universally consumed. They're catching a female salmon, that is. We also just got a look at him biting into the head. The brain also contains a fairly high proportion of fat. So bears will often bite into the brain and try to eat that. But we still have that eagle sitting on the far side too. Looks like it's done with that scrap it got from 747 before. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to swoop in fast enough and grab this. There's another bear moving into the area. Maybe it will try to grab those leftovers. And of course, there's several gulls in the area. So leftover salmon, those parts animals compete for. Okay, so here comes the eagle. Now it looks like the maybe got a little bit there. It was hard to see. But the gulls still seem to have found something down there in the water. It's quite a frenzy here for the calories and the energy that salmon bring into the ecosystem. And the gull that ended up getting the salmon, maybe the eagle was going to swoop down and try to get another piece from that. We can have millions of fish coming into this watershed each year. And the watershed that I speak of is the Naknek River watershed. It flows into Bristol Bay in the Bering Sea. Salmon that get here have to swim about 60 miles. May take them a couple of days or more to reach this spot. And not all the fish that swim up Naknek River will go here. Many of them will go other areas. And here comes the eagle again, because the gull couldn't quite get the rest of that fish head down in the down its gullet, so the eagle was able to swoop in once that gull had to regurgitate it. So not only is there, of course, a drama going on with the bears competing with one another, we have all these birds that are competing too, competing for the rich food resources that the salmon provide. So about 2 days or more for salmon to get here to Brooks River. And of all the fish that go into the Naknek River, Brooks River probably gets about 20% of those. Last year we had over 2 million salmon swim up Naknek River. That means, about 400,000 fish moved into Brooks River. Most of those probably jumped the falls. The salmon run this year is forecasted to be not quite as big, but it's still pretty big. So I think we can still expect to have over a million fish come into the Naknek River watershed. So we can have easily a couple 100,000 fish move through here. A few days ago, the escapement was very high, over 100,000 fish for maybe 2 or 3 days in a row. And I don't think a lot of those fish have got here yet. If you're watching the webcam tomorrow, or the next day, maybe you'll see a lot of salmon at the waterfall here, and you'll see quite a different dynamic. Instead of the bears sitting like they are for prolonged periods of time waiting for salmon, they may be able to get their fill very quickly. You may see salmon carcasses left on the island. And of course, once that big wave of salmon moves through and the fish become less dense, harder to catch, then those carcasses and those leftover fish parts are quickly consumed. Each day is a bit of a different story that way. One day it's a feast, the next day it can be a famine. Overall, there are more feast days though than famine days, and these bears are putting on a lot of weight if they can catch a lot of salmon, and especially in the fall, after the salmon spawn and begin to die, they become much, much easier to catch and much more accessible throughout the area. So bears put on a tremendous amount of weight in the fall months, especially in August, September, late summer, starting in August and then moving into the fall months, September and October. And we're a little over halfway through the broadcast right now. And if you've tuned in late, my name is Ranger Mike Fitz. I'm a park ranger at Katmai National Park and Preserve, and I'm standing on a wildlife viewing platform at Brooks Falls, world famous Brooks Falls. And for at least until the top of the hour, until 8 o'clock Alaska time, midnight Eastern time, I'm going to be narrating the salmon and bear activity that we see here, and any of the other wildlife that we might see come visit the falls. I'm not monitoring comments on Explore.org or Facebook if you're watching it in those locations, but I'll do my best to try to answer a lot of the basic questions that you might have about the bears, what they're doing here, how the salmon get here, why all of these animals are congregating in this site. This is one of my favorite places in the world, and I'm glad that you could join me on this Independence Day. We did have a new bear while we were watching 747 eat and some of the birds compete for his leftovers. We did have a new bear move into and start fishing at the falls. He was actually sleeping on the far bank for a long while. And this is now number 89 backpack. He's an adult male, 10 years old. He was a cub that was fairly conspicuous along Brooks River here. My first summer here, actually in 2007, he walked throughout much of the summer with a very severe limp. And we received a lot of questions from people here. This is pre-webcam days, of course. A lot of people here were very concerned for his welfare. I mean, he was this adorable looking cub. And he got a little close to 410 there, and she's going to back him off. 410 says, "This is my fishing spot." 89 says, "I want to fish here too." Maybe they've come to a little bit of I wouldn't call that a peace agreement. Maybe it's more of a Cold War that's going on. I'm not sure if 89 is going to back off or not, but he will just move away just a couple of steps. But he likes to fish that spot too. But his is just a story of, again, toughness and resiliency. He was a very cute cub, but he was limping fairly severely. And a lot of people, including myself, didn't give him really didn't really think that he would survive the summer. But this is a bear that taught me a lesson on just how tough and resilient these animals are. Even though he was limping, and I don't know if he had a broken leg or something else was wrong with this leg, we were never able to determine that. He was able to really persevere through that. His mother took good care of him, kept him well fed. He was weaned the next year. We saw him running around as a small 2.5-year-old bear. Now here he is today, fishing as an adult at Brooks Falls, living the life of a healthy wild bear. The park did receive a lot of comments about him. A lot of rangers, including myself, out at the river. When people saw him, they were, of course, very concerned for his welfare when he was a cub. We'd be asked questions like, is he going to be okay? And of course, I didn't know. We also, some people said a wide range of things. They said we should help it. Some people said, of course, we should leave it alone. The people who wanted us to help it, thought we should maybe capture it and take it to a rehab center or send it to a zoo. Other people thought we should euthanize it and put him out of his misery, as they saw. But we didn't do any of those things. We let nature take its course. And sometimes that doesn't end well for the bear. Sometimes they do succumb to injuries. But number 89 was resilient. He was tough, and he made it through that injury. And now, again, he's living the life of a wild, healthy bear. And almost every time I see him, I think about that story. Is he destined to, become one of the more dominant bears at Brooks Falls? I don't really know. But he's getting bigger with each year, able to hold his position just that much easier. And that's one of those stories that I want to follow over the next several years. So he just moved into number 83's position. 83 just caught a fish and is eating it. 89 likes to fish that spot near the log too. So let's take a look and see if 89 wants to try to hold his position against 83. It looks like he thought about it. You can see him backing away a little bit slowly. So maybe he's going to think twice of that. 83 will probably try to move back into that spot once he's done with his salmon. So 89, maybe without a fishing spot right now. But that might not be the case in a couple of years or so as he gains size and strength and skill competing with other bears. So within my line of sight, I can see 9 bears, if you include the family that's way downriver hiding in the grass. And again, they're not really going to show up very well on the webcam, but if they come closer, if another mom and cubs come closer, I'll be happy to show those to you. We do have a couple of bears down in the riffles area, about 100 yards from me. Both of these are also adult males, but they're not necessarily very big adult males. They're still growing, they're still fairly young. An adult bear, for brown bears anyway, would be considered, to be about, between 5 or 6 years of age or older. But that doesn't mean once you reach, the adult age, if you're able to, successfully mate and reproduce, that doesn't mean that you have reached your maximum size. And those two adult males down there are often relegated to some less desirable fishing spots. And you actually can hear a couple of females down there too, growling at one another. So we have that young adult male, number 151, on the lower left. In the center there is number 505, an adult female. And then on the right is number 128, who is caring for 3 cubs this year. And I suspect that her cubs are right on the bank, just out of our line of sight. She was at the falls not too long ago, maybe a half hour or more before the broadcast started. So maybe she'll come back up this way and check things out. Number 128 fished the lip of the falls a lot last year. She was a regular on the lip of the falls, and she was very good at it. She caught a lot of fish in that position. She has not, to my knowledge, visited that spot yet this year, and I bet that is because she is caring for her offspring. Coming to Brooks Falls, being around all of these bears, poses a risk to her cubs. I wrote about this in the chat on Explore.org earlier today, about how females with cubs will alter their behavior to give their cubs maybe greater levels of protection. They may sacrifice their own health, their body weight especially, so their cubs may have a greater chance of survival. Females with cubs are almost universally smaller than single females of the same age. So, given that both bears are healthy, females with cubs expend so much more energy watching for threats from other animals, other bears, nursing their cubs, being vigilant, that they don't have as much time and can't focus on fishing and gaining energy for themselves as much as a single female bear. So number 128 was really fat and chubby last year. I doubt she'll get that big this year, just because she has to spend more time watching for threats and expending a lot of energy nursing her cubs. Those young cubs demand a lot of milk, as much as a quart of milk per cub per day. So if you have 3 cubs, you're looking at 3 quarts of milk that she's producing. And bear milk is very rich in fat, about 33% fat, if I remember correctly. So a tremendous amount of energy that she has to expend to raise those offspring. As the cubs grow older, they will become less and less dependent on mother's milk. In fact, in the fall this year, those young cubs, those first-year cubs, will still nurse. However, they will be eating a lot of salmon at the same time too. And those cubs, we've seen them start to eat salmon. The mother won't necessarily bring the fish back for them to eat, but what she'll do is she'll bring them back, catch a salmon, and often walk to the bank of the river where her cubs are, and the cubs will tear pieces of fish away from her, and usually mother bears will tolerate that. And that is again the Riffles area downstream of Brooks Falls. So our 5 adult bears still fishing at the waterfall, doing an excellent job of being patient. The water temperature at Brooks River at this time of the year could be between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe on the warmer end of that spectrum. Still pretty cold for a human. I've been in that water, and unless I have a dry suit on, I can't stay in the water for more than a few moments. I tend to get chilled very, very easily. Bears are massive animals, though. They have a very high volume compared to their surface area, and larger objects just take a lot longer to cool down compared to smaller objects. And that's one reason why bears are well adapted for fishing. When bears go to their den in the fall, they're not doing it to avoid wintertime cold. They're certainly big enough to tolerate the cold. So it's not low temperatures that they're avoiding when they go into their den. They're avoiding wintertime famine. If they could find enough food to maintain a high enough metabolism level so that they could be active throughout the winter, then they maybe wouldn't have evolved this remarkable hibernation strategy. But there's really no food for them throughout much of North America in the wintertime. So bears are eating a year's worth of calories in 6 months or less. So we had 2 bears just catch a fish at the same time, 747 here. And then number 89 backpack on the far side. We'll take a look at him because we've looked at 747 eating a fish before. 89 seems to be eating his fish just a little bit faster. Maybe he hasn't caught as many today. You can also see that he moved away from the river to eat his catch. And that might have been sort of an avoidance strategy, knowing that there are other bears nearby that may try to steal his fish, especially the one he was fishing near, number 83. Younger bears in the first few years of their life are especially prone to maybe catch a fish and kind of run away from the close proximity of other bears. We do see fish stealing happen a lot around here. And that's one of the things that I tell people who arrive at Brooks River. Everyone who comes here to Brooks Camp is required to have a mandatory 20-minute bear information and safety talk. One of the things that I like to inform people at this time of the year is when you see a bear running with a fish in its mouth, you got to really pay attention because there might be another bigger bear behind it chasing it. So you need to have your wits about you, and you need to know how you're going to get out of their way and potentially de-escalate any situation could come about from that. Actually, I was wrong about the rate of consumption there, because 89's still eating his fish, and 747 has finished his, and he's back in the jacuzzi. Actually, I was wrong about the rate of consumption there, because 89's still eating his fish, and 747 has finished his, and he's back in the jacuzzi. Let's take a quick pan downriver. It looks like there's just maybe we'll catch a brief glimpse of some moms and cubs way down there. So just as we started the broadcast, number 402 and her two cubs had walked underneath us, and it looks like she may have moved downstream. So certainly a more active fishing bear to catch salmon. There are no barriers to salmon migration in that location. Salmon have a lot of escape routes. So you're probably not going to be able to sit in the river down there and wait for salmon to come to you. You may be able to stand in the river, and as you see salmon swimming in the vicinity, you might be able to go after them, but you're going to have to chase them. And of course that expends a lot of energy. These big adult males up here at the falls, you don't see them chasing fish nearly as much as younger bears or females with cubs. So again, another behavioral difference between those two. You're a big male, you have that advantage. You can hold your position in the places where fish are going to come to you. If you're a younger bear, a female with cubs who maybe can't hold those positions, then you might have to be a bit more active in trying to chase fish. And now right down below me is one of those young adult males that we were watching in the riffles before, number 151. So he came up just kind of cruising around, patrolling. Maybe a salmon got his attention there, but not enough to send him on a run. Another one of those young males that was moving, that we were standing down river for a long while, number 274. Also a bear we think was raised along the Brooks River here. And we think had the same mother as number 83, the bear with the wounds and scars on him that we were looking at earlier. So he's at the falls now and cruising around. This is a normal sized bear for a bear this age. He's from a 2007 litter. Sometimes people have commented on this bear thinking that he's, just the skinny looking, and he certainly is thinner than a lot of the bigger adult males like number 747. But again, 747 is a giant. Not all bears are going to look as fat as him. So younger bears, especially those bears that are 2.5 to 5.5 years old, they haven't quite reached adult age. Those are the bears that we call the sub-adults. And this one's older than a subadult. It's an adult. They're skinnier, lankier, because they don't carry as much body fat on them through the fall and the winter. But proportionally, they may gain, more weight than a bear like 747. The smaller sub-adult bears, they can maybe double the weight over the course of a year. If you're a 200-pound sub-adult here in Katmai and there's a good salmon run, it's certainly quite possible you can go into the den as a 400-pound bear. So 274 looking at the waterfall. Maybe he'll have a better chance in the future to maintain a fishing spot at Brooks Falls. But he's not quite large enough yet. The number 480 Otis right now is catching and eating a fish. I'm not sure if we're really going to be able to take a good look at his mouth and see any of those missing canines or not. But watch how he bites the fish. I mean, he certainly uses one side of his mouth over the other, bites, using those canines, but maybe chews on a different side. If you joined the broadcast late, I was talking about this bear earlier and how he's missing a couple of canines. His molars are probably also fairly worn too. He's an older bear. He's close to 20 years old. The average lifespan of an adult male brown bear is about 20 or so. They can live much longer than that. We have a bear here that's thought to be close to 30. She's about 28. And we've had adult males live to be over 30 here at Brooks River, or suspected to be at least. So he may have many more years ahead of him. But dental wear, broken teeth, and things like that can really impact their ability to catch salmon, defend space, and access to food resources. And again, that was one of the challenges that that 480 Otis faces. So it's a little bit after 8 o'clock Alaska time, 12 midnight Eastern time. My name is Mike Fitz, and I'm a park ranger here at Katmai National Park and Preserve. And I'll stay with you for another 15 or 20 minutes as I narrate the bear and salmon activity here at Brooks Falls. If you're not familiar with this location, I am about 300 miles southwest of Anchorage, Alaska, at the top of the Alaska Peninsula. Katmai National Park is a 4 million acre national park. It's mostly a wilderness park. Most of the acreage is designated wilderness where development is prohibited. And that wilderness is the home and refuge to about 2,200 brown bears. Not all of whom come to Brooks River, but we do have a good number that come to Brooks River. As many as 100 bears have been identified to use the river in July. Not that many in the past few years. In fact, last year it was closer to 40-some bears that we saw using Brooks River in July. But this is an incredibly important food resource and gathering place for brown bears. Brooks Falls is the first place really in the region where bears have access to salmon that have just returned from the ocean. And these salmon that come here are exceptionally rich in calories. Each salmon contains about 4,500 calories. And on good days, we see bears catch and eat more than 20 fish. So they can take in, on good days, if you're a big bear, good at catching fish, you can take in 100,000 calories in a day. We were watching. A lot of these bears have been sitting here for over an hour. They were here when I got here around 5:30 or so. They were here when I started the broadcast at 7 p.m. They're still here now. I mentioned it a couple of times, but it's probably worth mentioning again that they are very patient animals. Very good at, have good memories, long memories. So they know if they wait this time of the year, they're patient that salmon will come to them, so they'll be rewarded with that really rich food resource. We don't see bears doing this though in April when they come out of their dens. We don't see them doing it in May when the mating season starts to pick up. We don't see them doing it in early June. Kind of like, late middle June, we might see them. Third week in June, we might see a couple visit Brooks Falls here and there. It's really not until late June that we see bears regularly fishing at Brooks Falls. So for these bears, it seems to be really ingrained within their yearly rhythm, their annual cycle, to know that salmon are going to be here for a few short weeks each summer. When the salmon move through this river, they start to spawn in other streams, then the bears will disperse to those streams. So August is a time where we don't see very many brown bears on Brooks River. In fact, hardly at all. That's not to say that there aren't salmon here at Brooks River at that time. What that means is that the salmon just aren't accessible. In August, the salmon have yet to spawn, most of them anyway. So they remain fairly energetic, and they're here in low densities, and that really equals tough fishing conditions for bears. Bears have discovered that. They've discovered that there's other places that's easier to catch fish, and that's where they'll go during the month of August. Once the salmon begin to spawn in late August and September, a lot of these bears, in fact, all of these bears that we can see in the view right now, will come back in the fall on most years to fish Brooks River for dead and dying salmon. Maybe not necessarily right at Brooks Falls, but further downstream where the salmon carcasses collect. And it looks like we might have a fish stealing incident going on. Number 410 just caught a fish. 83, that male with the wounds on him. Might try to take that. Let's see what happens. So 410, not being cooperative, of course. She wants that meal just as much as 83 does. 83 last week was taking fish from her. Maybe he's a bit more well-fed now. He doesn't need to necessarily take that risk of injuring himself. Even though 410's an older bear, she still has very quick reflexes and still big, long, sharp claws. So if she wants to inflict damage on another bear, she has that capability. 83 might recognize that, knowing that, hey, maybe this one's not worth the risk. I'm not quite that hungry. It seems like the rate of fish stealing goes down with when the relative abundance of salmon goes up. So there almost seems to be an inverse relationship between those two behaviors, which would make sense. Why risk injury to yourself stealing a fish when you can just wait for a salmon to come to you? But for some bears, taking a fish is a perfectly legitimate and a successful fishing strategy and can get you a lot of calories over the long run. Downstream, we have these younger bears like number 274 right here. You're not familiar with him? Want to know more about his life history? Download the Bears of Brooks River identification book. It's a free ebook that's available from Katmai's website, and you can find a link to that on explore.org. Right above the comment section on any of the Bear Camp pages. This is fairly common for younger males. Again, they can't really hold their own against the real big bears at the falls, so they hover on the fringes downstream, maybe waiting for a salmon carcass some leftovers to drift their way, waiting for some of those other bears to yield their spot voluntarily so they can move in and try practicing fishing. There's another one, another young adult male right down here, number 151, who's nicknamed Walker, sitting on that rock. We see a lot of bears actually sitting on rocks. Of course, I don't know why. I can't ask them. I imagine that maybe it's just a little bit warmer than standing in the water. And this play-by-play is going to end in just a few minutes here. I'm glad everyone could enjoy the bears with me this evening, tonight, this morning, wherever you happen to be across the world. It's really wonderful that our webcam partner, Explore.org, is providing the funding and the technical expertise to make this these webcams a reality. I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed the Ranger Mike Cam tonight as I talk about the different bear behaviors that we see. I think that maybe the theme of this evening that we've watched is patience. There's a little bit of competition going on between these bears. They certainly know each other. They know kind of where they sit in the hierarchy, so they're not challenging each other on a regular basis like they did earlier in the salmon run, maybe just last week or the week before. And that can change when a new bear comes into the area, or if they're more or less hungry. But tonight we saw that a lot of these bears are sitting here for, hours on end waiting for the fish to come to them. And a hallmark of brown bears, especially those that can fish for salmon and make their living off of salmon. One of those hallmarks and traits of bears like these is patience. Be sure to join Ranger Dave and I for another live chat at 3 o'clock Alaska time tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll be back online for another play-by-play on Wednesday and Thursday night this week, both at 7 p.m. Alaska time. If those times change, we'll be happy to inform everybody in the comments on Explore.org. And please follow Katmai on Twitter, on Facebook. Do the same for our webcam partner, Explore.org. So sit back and relax. There's going to be a lot of good bear watching the rest of the evening here until dark, maybe throughout the night. We'll see if you can be as patient as these animals are right here. So until next time, enjoy the bears.